Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. On this show, we talk about healthcare issues, we talk about sports, we talk about a lot of different things, but one of my favorite subjects is politics and government. And today I'm lucky enough to have one of the people that I think is the most honest and straightforward interviews I've ever had, and that's Mickey Kearns, who is the Erie County Clerk. And you know, Mickey, it's always a pleasure having you in here because you're a breath of fresh air when it comes to telling it like it is, and I like that. The very first thing, first of all, I'm going to mention that Mickey is running for re-election. This is not an endorsement. This is not a political program to get him elected. This is just an informational program like we always do. And his opponent is deserving of equal time if he wants it. So, you know, there's the offer. You know, we could make that happen, you know, for the election coming up. But right now, we're going to talk about the Erie County Clerk's office. And our first question I wanted to ask is, what's new?
There is a lot new going on, Phil. It's an exciting job. It's a technical and it's an important job. We talk a lot about it. We have a software conversion happening. And just think, Phil, if you're walking around with, or your listeners and your viewers, with a phone that was 25 years old, our software is outdated. We found some bugs in our software. So we're upgrading it, we're modernizing it, and it's important because we want to have a customer service office where the customer, which is the taxpayer, gets the best service possible. So it's in our registration office. We do land records in there, pistol permits, lots of transactions. It's a very important office for us and for the public. And we create a lot of reports for, it could be a revenue generator. But once again, that software conversion is important. And simultaneously, we're working with New York State to upgrade our software in the DMV. So Phil, believe me, our staff is very professional. I'm very complimentary of them, whether it's the DMV or our staff at our registrar's office, because it is a very technical, important job.
You know, I can remember, I'm old enough to remember when you went to the DMV, you had to bring a sleeping bag and a dinner.
Correct.
Now, I was, just last week, I was registering a vehicle at the DMV here in the Eastern Hills Mall, or what's left of it. And I was in there in maybe 10 minutes worth, and then I was out. And it was a pleasure. It wasn't intimidating at all. You know, as long as you're prepared to go in, you're done. And I can't say enough. I think it was Mickey or Nikki, the lady who waited on me, and she did a great job. And the transaction I had was a little unusual because I bought a vehicle out of state, new, and I brought it here to register it. So I had to have a lot of paperwork for it.
You know, Phil, you know, if you remember when we were young and I first became clerk, we did an assessment of the clerk's office, and we didn't hire a fancy marketing firm. I came up with it myself. If you remember the nuns in school, reading, writing, and arithmetic, the 3 R's, well, we have ready, reserve, renew. If you're ready and you come in, you make a reservation and you make an appointment, and obviously we want people to renew local so the money stays here in Erie County, you will have a pleasant experience. We've even listened to the public. I know Michael Cicchini and I were out at the fair, and one of the persons said, you know, I'm getting there, Mickey, I make an appointment, but I want to be taken care of immediately. So just like Disney, we listen to the public. We have a fast track lane where you go in, you get immediate service, and even if you go to the doctor's office, you don't get, you go in, you sit down, you're not seen right away. Our goal is to make sure we know your time is precious, and we don't run the DMV like it used to be. That has been a lot of hard work from our staff, our team. We've modernized the facilities, new chairs. If you remember, it was a little disgusting. It was like pillows. Thousands of people were sitting in those chairs. And my first week, I remember them calling a number, and people would cheer after they got called to go up to the window. I thought that was unprofessional. I thought it was something that we needed to improve. So new facilities, something like adding bathrooms. Danny's doors to make sure the disabled can get into our facilities. And I could talk a lot about our mobiles and what we do for the disability community, but this isn't your grandparents or your father or mother's DMV. Just end with this. I remember being over at our Nordtowns facility not too far from here, and a woman, when I was there, was very upset, wanted to talk to the clerk. I spoke with her and I said, what is the problem? What is the issue? She says, I'm mad at you, Mr. Kearns, because I wanted to be here for an hour. My husband dropped me off. She was getting picked up by her husband. She wanted to read a book. I said, we're not going to throw you out. You can still stay here. So if you're ready, you're prepared, you make an appointment, that's where we're going, and we're going to continuously improve the office. We're not done yet. We can be better. Unfortunately, government is usually 10 to 15 years behind the private sector. I've tried to push and move technology and make it the center of our office.
You know, all too often, and I've had a lot of experience with this, government officials are more absorbed in themselves and how to make things easier for what they do. They're not thinking about making things easier for what the public does. And that's a big difference. And progress, there's a lot of talk about progress and things evolving. Progress doesn't necessarily mean improvement. Right. So when it does lead to improvement, you know, we should embrace it. I mean, it's a natural when things go more smoothly with interaction with government, and that doesn't, I don't say that lightly because it doesn't happen very often.
Phil, if you think about it, I really believe this. You could have one person in charge of just the DMVs. We have 6 locations. We're doing mobiles on Jefferson Avenue at the Meriwether Library. We're in Grand Island, which is very important, obviously, with the big bridge. We're in Springville. And then something I've always wanted to do, and we're doing it, we're helping the disability community. We're going out to senior centers. We were at the Elevencia Center to break down language barriers. We go to a specific location, a true mobile, and we're there. You know, we're at Build Promise. I want to make sure everyone has access to information, and that is even a non-driver's license for many people who are, you know, sort of building their lives back up. That's what Build Promise is about. They're adjacent, across the street from St. Luke's. So, look, we all have a goal and a purpose, but this is a very technical job, and we didn't even talk about New York State upgrading their system with the former commissioner, Mark Schroeder. It was something that we talked about that he really did follow through on, and we're in the process. Some DMVs, they were closed. We were closed a couple days with a holiday weekend, and we were able to absorb that new technology. Remember, if someone worked on a computer for 20 years doing the same thing every day, now they have a new system. Things are done a different way. This is not an easy job. It's a technical job, and it's something that I like immensely because I like the responsibility, I like the leadership, and I like making sure that the Erie County Clerk's Office is customer-centered. That's taking the complaints. Sometimes it's not always good, but complaints are thank yous, and we want to be better. And I enjoy that, and I enjoy seeing the people, and I'm out there in the community speaking with them, and we're getting more positivity than negativity, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, you know, and this is a question I always ask when you're here. You know, for the people who may not have seen this before or heard this before, I want you to think for a second and talk about services that the clerk's office does for the people of Erie County that very few people know about, you know, that they haven't thought about. Oh, I didn't realize the clerk does that. What are some of the services that you guys offer?
Most people think about the DMV. We do over 2 million transactions a year. Most people think about the DMV, but it used to be, oh, I only have to go once every 8 years. We know summer season is upon us. You have to have your boat registered, your trailer to pull the boat, a jet ski. So they're in for that. They're in to renew their registration every 2 years. So they're accustomed to thinking about the DMV. A pistol permit, you know, we work with the sheriff and we work with the licensing officer to make sure that we process the pistol permits on behalf of those 2 departments. In addition to that, all land transfers happen in the clerk's office. So every single property in Erie County that's transferred, whether it's commercial or residential, that happens in the clerk's office. Something like a notary. You know, we're the business office of Erie County. So many businesses use our offices. So we have to be business friendly. The notaries, doing business as, it's great to see the young entrepreneurs. You know, they may have a thought or an idea, especially with technology, and they need to open up a bank account. So having a DBA, and we process that, partnering with the State Department. A lot of things that we do in the office, I can go on and on and on, but it is a very technical office, it is a very complex office. So we continue to do that. And Phil, oh, by the way, we have a surplus every year. We've been able to grow the surplus, and I've been able to bring new initiatives like our passport agencies. We're not too far away from here, where we opened a new outreach center here adjacent to our Eastern Hills Mall Auto Bureau location, where we provide passport services. I think the one thing I want to mention is I might be the first clerk to use analytics. We study the data, because when you study data, good data drives good decisions. And I really believe that. The data doesn't lie. And we were seeing that predominantly nearly 30% of our customers at our Southgate location were coming from the North Towns. Well, we had to fix that. And we did fix it. So, you know, I always like to say promises made, promises kept. We're trying to keep as many promises as possible.
You know, it's refreshing to have a surplus in any, you know, government agency. I'm not sure that any other, you know, agency in the county can say that, but that's quite an accomplishment.
8 years in running, we've had a surplus. I'm very proud of this. You know, I'll tell you how important it is, and this is when you talk about politicians getting in the way. New York State wanted to shut us down during COVID. We were the surplus of Erie County, $5 million during COVID that year, and they said, we got to shut down. What did we do? We thought about it, and we thought, we can't shut down. Think about the guy or girl selling a vehicle. Think about the repair people. We do thousands of transactions for our dealers. They'd have to shut down because you only get a temporary registration when you purchase a new car or a used car. So we were innovative. I've got a great team, and we did curbside assistance to keep things going, to keep the money coming in. We didn't lay off one person in the office. I love telling the story about Douglas Jamal. Major project that he started, the M&T Tower. He had to close that. Do you know how many people need months and months of financing? If we would have shut down as a clerk's office, believe me, that was the one time in my office, believe me, I shut the door and I said a prayer, because we've never been through that. But in the end, we stayed open, we got through it. So you need someone that has experience, someone who understands the office. And Phil, once again, we've had previous clerks, people like Dave Swartz, who modernized. He was the first one to say, we're going to bring technology into this office. And he did a great job. So I'm just trying to follow in the footsteps to say, I'm the next clerk who's going to modernize, especially with technology, going to the cloud. There's so many things we could talk about, and the importance of making sure that we're prepared for the future. And that's always important.
Well, we're on time for this segment. You know, I wish the county in general, and beyond that, the state, was, you know, something we can talk positively about, but not so much. When we come back, we'll talk a little bit about how the county is doing and maybe some of the things that are going on in the state. Stay tuned. Welcome back to The Big Picture. My guest is Mickey Kearns, Erie County Clerk, and we're talking about the Clerk's Office and Erie County. Maybe we'll get to New York State as well. There's a lot going on. You know, you hear, if you listen to the news at all, you'll hear a lot about politics and what government is doing and, you know, how people are reacting. Erie County, Mickey, in general, there's some problems out there. I can't begin to name all of them because there's so many, but How, in your opinion, is Erie County doing as an entity? Could it be better?
You know, it always can be better, Phil. When I look at things, and you know, obviously I'm in government. I'm the county clerk. We have a district attorney. We have an Erie County sheriff. We have an Erie County executive, and we have an Erie County controller. So we always can do better. And I'll give you an example, something that I think is important to me. We know Buffalo is a very poor community. Erie County is now facing many different challenges because as the cost of things are going up, especially taxes. And we don't really hear a lot about that. But Erie County has the highest, when you get behind on your taxes, we want everyone to pay their taxes. When you get behind on your taxes, they have a punitive rate of 18%. It's higher than the usury laws in New York State. And just think of that woman, or you know, maybe her husband passed. You know, their income hasn't changed. They've been retired. They're in Cheektowaga. They retired there. They were thinking, I'm never going to have to worry. My house is paid for. But people are paying $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 a year in property taxes. They get behind on their taxes, and guess what? Erie County then puts 18% on that. And it's happening over and over again. So we really don't have a housing plan in Erie County. It's sort of like the dead fish that float downstream. There is no leadership. The fish are just going with this current and going with the stream. And there are many issues that we're facing. Misallocation of funding. We put a lot of money into something called ErieNet, which has not been successful. And this is not me, you know, talking about it, but you know, looking at it, every time the county executive they talk about ErieNet, he has a different excuse. Now, he said, with all the planning and all the professionals that are running that department, that if they would have known this years ago, that you know, they can't get access to the poles. The trees are growing into the wires. That's why we've been waiting for so long for ErieNet to really thrive. So
what's ErieNet supposed to be doing? What are they?
It's providing internet access to rural communities, right? So they're trying to, I see when there's an idea, but you know, the private sector can have that. And I think that's what's going on, Phil. These big ideas from politicians that could be handled if done correctly in a better way. You know, the private sector, you know, Elon Musk, they're shooting satellites up. Technology changes so fast. ErieNet's going to be just, you know, in the next couple of years, we would have been better investing in a technology like Starlink or some other technology. So that's something that, you know, when you're talking about every dollar counting, is there waste in county government? Yes, there is waste. And I think there are things we can do better. And, you know, one of the positives is we work very closely with Real Property. And they saw with our upgrades in technology, we have to work with them. They utilize the information in the clerk's office in Real Property, the deeds, right? And what did they do? They're using the same company that we're using, going to the cloud. So I'm very proud of that. Out of all the different departments that I mentioned earlier, we're the first one to take on this task of upgrading our software, getting Erie County in the 21st century. And, you know, we're the most technical business-like office, and I'm very proud that Real Property is also doing the same. And you know, the computer DISS has asked us for additional information on our vendor. So we're going to continue to do that, continue to be positive. But we have a housing crisis in Erie County, and nobody is talking about it. And I know this from the clerk's office because there's low inventory. There's not a lot of housing. Just think of all the young people that are out there. I remember when I bought my first house, I paid $75,000 for that house. And it was fair. At that time, I wasn't paying a lot in property taxes. We now see almost a double-digit increase in the city of Buffalo. We're having problems. I'm a City of Buffalo resident. That's pretty high. All of our fees are going up. Government is out of control, when it comes to fees and taxes. So when I think of Erie County, I think it's been politicized by this administration. And, you know, you're not supposed to monetize your office. You're not supposed to utilize it. But I think this administration, I'll be glad they're on their way out. We need some new, fresh ideas.
Well, we got about 5 or 6 minutes left. You know, the city of Buffalo has had a Democrat in charge for the last 60 plus years. It's just the city votes Democrat. And 60 years ago, the population of the city was 550,000 people. Today, it's like 220 or 230,000 people. Every subsequent administration is a Democrat, and people continue to elect that leadership, and the city has gone down. And to a great extent, that's the anchor for Erie County. And so Erie County suffers when the city suffers. People continue to do the same thing. And it just, I mean, for 60 some years, it's hard for me to understand why there's never been a change. And is it just because now you were a Democrat, you're a Republican, you served on the city council, you served in Albany, now you're the Erie County clerk, so you know the ins and outs of these things. Is there some reason why the insanity of doing the same thing over and over and over again and never ever changing? How does that work, and why do people vote the way they do? Is it because it's tradition? Is it because there's a lack of thought? Is it?
No.
I don't know what.
You know what it is, Phil? It's the system. I don't blame the voters. The voters, you know, if you go into a restaurant, you only have two choices. You only have two choices. I blame the system. The system is rigged. First of all, we've gone, and I was in Albany, to a June primary. People are busy during that June time. You know, the kids are out of school. They're cutting the grass. They're trying to enjoy the short season that we have. And Albany knew that. And they changed the primary to June. So it benefits a Democrat because there's a low voter turnout. You could target certain people. Even if you look at the targeting among the Democrats, they're able to only get elected with a small percentage of the vote. System's rigged. So we used to be in September when people were back from school. It was like the start of the fall. Football season, voting, elections. People sort of had that ingrained in their mind. So now people are going out in the wintertime to get petitions in order to qualify for the ballot. It's a disincentive. You know, I'm very disappointed because there was a charter review commission in the city of Buffalo, and they were talking about maybe changing some things up, and they voted them all down. You know, the current mayor said, we can't have that. You know, I know the former mayor, Chris Scanlon, who was filling in for Byron Brown, you know, he was the acting mayor, and they sort of pushed him out, right? And they said, here's the primary. I think, you know, parties should matter at the local level. You know, you vote for the person, you vote for the person who has the better ideas, you vote for the person who has experience. And this is what we're getting when you're getting the lack of choice. And the idea of serving in politics has lost its shine a little bit. You got to be tough a little bit to be an elected official. So to me, nothing is going to change unless we change the system. The voters can only pick what they can pick from, and so many are discouraged with their elected officials, they don't even go out and vote anymore. There's such a low voter turnout. So to me, until the system changes, until we get some leadership to say, we're going to give voters a choice, because remember, who does it benefit? It's the people like Jeremy Zellner, the political bosses who can pick the candidate. There's not an open process.
Well, you know, in one respect, I have to admire the Democrats because they get it. They know how to be together. They know how to basically make things so that the outcome is what they want. The Republicans, certainly in New York State and perhaps in Erie County, the record speaks for itself. The Republicans don't do as good a job at getting elected. They may be better when they're in office, just doing the right thing, but getting into office is not something they're talented at. It just doesn't work that way.
Well, we've had some talented people. If you look at it, our former, there's a former Republican chairman, Nick Langworthy. He won some big races. The legislature was Republican at that time. He's now a sitting congressperson, very close confidant of President Trump. We have Michael Crocker now, our current Republican chairman. He's a very talented guy. He works for the majority leader. He's new to the job, so he's just getting his feet wet, but he's another talented guy. I wouldn't sleep on guys like that. And what people are seeing, they don't like maybe parts of the Democratic Party. I'm a Democrat. I'm still been a registered Democrat my whole life, but people don't like socialism. People don't like defunding the police. When you're in these big jobs like mayor and county executive, you have to work with people. You have to, work with law enforcement and the state. And I think our elected officials forgot that, they have a duty to everyone. When you come into the clerk's office, I don't say, are you a Democrat or a Republican? We say, how can we help you? I love my job because it's a ministerial job, meaning I don't have to vote on anything like when I was in Albany. But the system is rigged. And until the system changes, we're going to get the same outcomes.
Well, and you put your finger on it. When you come in to be served by the government, you should be served by the government. You shouldn't be taken advantage of, because it's not for the government, it's for the people. That's the way we were founded, and that's the way it should be. Anyway, we're out of time for this segment. It goes very quickly. I want to thank Mickey Kearns for being my guest. I want to thank everybody here for watching WBBZ-TV. You make us successful, and the big picture is just a small part of that, and I want to thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on The Big Picture.